I'm just gonna do a quick introduction. We have some people to introduce before we get to our panel. So my name is Erica Estes. I am chair of the URI College of Pharmacy Admissions Committee, and we are so excited to have you here tonight and welcome you to our first Pharmacy 2021 and Beyond alumni panel. So there's actually a couple people on the Zoom call here that I would like to introduce before we get to our panelists. So first, I just saw Dr. Kelly Orr hopped on, our Associate Dean. Kelly, I know I didn't tell you this, but do you want to say hello?
Hi, this is great. I'm so excited to see everyone, alumni and, potentially new students. And sorry, my kids are yelling in the background. It's very calm here otherwise, but thank you, Erica, for coordinating, and also Ian and Aaron for moderating as well. This is great. And thank you to our alumni who are also great for, coming back and telling their story too.
Hi, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, Kelly's going to get a shout out from Matt in the business plan later on, so stay tuned for that. We're also happy to have our Dean, Paul Larritt, here, who would also like to give you a welcome as well.
Sure, thanks, Erica. I really just wanted to say, if you're new to URI, welcome to our event tonight. I encourage you to visit us at some point in time. We are open. We'd love to show off our facilities. We'd love to show off our students and faculty. So, please come on by and visit us. Thank you to our alumni panelists. I can't wait to hear your stories, and thank you for sharing them. And then finally, in the audience, we do have some students and alums, so it's good to see you all virtually again. So hope you enjoyed the program. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dean Larritt. So tonight's event was actually planned to showcase our alumni who we have featured here on the panel, and really what you can do overall with a pharmacy degree. We want to welcome all of our prospective students, and congratulations to all of the students who have been admitted into our PharmD, and I'm going to say this, which sounds crazy, class of 2027. So there is so much value in expanding this particular panel to our current students, and we're really glad to have some of them on the Zoom call as well. And also just friends and alumni of our College of Pharmacy. So thank you everyone for being here. So we have 5 amazing panelists and 1 superstar 6th year PharmD student who's going to be here to kick off the event. And I can't wait for you to meet them. So this panel highlights several alumni that are featured in our new PharmD Career Exploration Center. And Greg Cianferroni is a 1992 URI College of Pharmacy alumni, and he's founder and CEO of both RX Insider and Core Education Group. So those students on the call will recognize this from the Core Elms platform that you use for experiential education. So we're one of only a few colleges of pharmacy in the country right now piloting this new offering. And Ian Lester, who is not going to show himself on this call, but he's behind the scenes. He's our IT manager, and we've been planning a way to expand the content that's featured in the portal, but really highlight our alumni, telling their stories in their own words and describing their career paths through personal interviews. So we thought we'd highlight a few clips and bios in the portal, but once we began, we realized that these alumni conversations were so much better than what we had ever imagined. So Erin Foray, my 6th year APPE student last block, took on the challenge of being our lead interviewer, and she conducted almost 20 interviews in her 6 weeks that she was with me. We're really proud to have Erin moderate this panel tonight. She's already been featured on Channel 10 News a few weeks ago during the COVID response, and she was on a panel for that as well. So this tonight is really no big deal for her, so we knew she'd be up for it. So Ian, if you want to share the video preview of the portal, we would love to show everyone what that looks like.
I was pretty excited to say I was the only practicing pharmacist on a whole continent.
Awesome. All right, good. So thank you. So that portal is available on our website. You'll be able to see it in our social media channels. And if you check on the website on the Visit Us section and scroll down to the bottom, you'll be able to access all of the content. So the interviews that we're featuring tonight are from that particular portal, and we're going to keep adding additional ones as time goes on. So keep it out. So what I would like to do now, housekeeping wise, is just before I flip it over to Erin, is just let you all know that we do have a lot more upcoming events, and we'll be posting some of those things in the chat. So for the students that are on, for the admitted students, be sure to check those things out as well. And we have Caitlin Burton, our P3 student, who's also on. You'll see her there. She'll give us a little wave, Caitlin. She'll be in the chat, also answering additional questions. So again, for the students that are on, if you have questions that you want to ask besides anything that's on the panel, anything else admissions related, feel free to type that in as well. And now I will turn it over to Erin to introduce herself and our panelists.
Hey, so thank you for the introduction. My name is Erin Forey, and I am a P4 student currently on rotation. Well, I just finished my rotation with Dr. Estes a couple weeks ago, and now I'm on my ambulatory care rotation at the VA with Dr. Tavera. I work at Green Line Apothecary with one of the panelists that I'll be introducing soon. And after graduation this year, I'm going to be working for Walgreens. So I'm very excited to have that plan in place. So I am just going to start introducing our panelists. So Jill, did you want to go first? She is a long-term care pharmacist at PharMerica.
My name is Jill Powers. I graduated in '89 and have been working in many different fields of pharmacy, most recently for PharMerica long-term care, and I'm happy to be part of this panel.
All right, and Kylie?
Hi, I'm Kylie Fogarty. I am a 2007 graduate from the College of Pharmacy. I worked for most of my career for the chain pharmacies, and for the past 2 years, I've been working at a local independent pharmacy, Green Line Apothecary, which Erin just mentioned, that we all absolutely love. And I'm also very happy to be included. Thank you, Erica.
All right, and Anthony?
Hi, everyone. My name is Antony Giuliani. Originally grew up in Smithfield, Rhode Island. Graduated from URI in 2017. Did a year of postgraduate training at the VA down in West Haven, Connecticut. A second year of postgraduate training down in Hartford, Connecticut. And then I just found myself at Boston Medical Center, where I mainly manage patients who have diabetes, and really enjoying it for the year and a half I've been there so far.
Awesome. And Rebecca?
Hey everyone, glad you're all here today. My name is Rebecca. I graduated from URI COP 2012. A kind of diverse career, but I'm here representing hospital pharmacy today. I've added it up. I think I've had 7 different jobs in the 9 years since I've graduated, but thankfully some of those have overlapped. And a lot of my career has been in Alaska or traveling with pharmacy. So I'm also going to share some info about that today.
All right, and last but not least, we have Matt.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Talbot. I graduated class of 2014. I own 2 pharmacies in Northern Maine. I've been in my family's, I'm the 5th generation pharmacist, so it's been in the family for quite a while, and purchased the pharmacies in 2019. And just, yeah, that's my story representing independent pharmacy.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So I guess I'll just open up the floor, and whoever wants to talk about just a brief description of what your typical workday is like, and we can, whoever wants to start can just go for it.
I think Rebecca should start. She has the most interesting one.
I was going to say we should all look at Jill because you graduated first and you introduced first, but I'll go first if you all want me to.
So I work in long-term care consulting, and currently with COVID, my job is a little bit different than what it is normally, although I'm still able to do the same amount of work, just a little bit differently like everybody else. And my day starts when the sun rises. The cool thing about working in a place that I just have a set amount of work to get done in a month is I can start whenever I want. Long-term care facilities are open 24/7, So I can go in really early, and if it's going to be a beautiful day, get out early and go for a walk and enjoy the day. And that can be good or bad because you can tend to work too many hours. So you have to try to get a good work-life balance. And sometimes it's my husband telling me, okay, that's enough. But
It's always important.
yes.
Great. Rebecca, do you want to talk about your typical day in Alaska?
Does the
There's no
sun come up there, Rebecca?
Yes, we have 11 hours. I took my dogs for a walk yesterday after work, and yesterday was the first day I'd gotten off work and we actually had daylight. You know, usually New England suffers from this too. You go to work in the dark, you come off of work and it's already dark. But I'm in Barrow, Alaska currently, at an Indian Health Service facility up here. So we have one pharmacy that services not just our town, but the entire North Slope borough. Boroughs are like counties in Alaska. So we have about 10,000 patients living in 6 or 7 or maybe 8 different towns in my borough. None of these towns are connected by road system to each other or to the rest of the world. You know, so when you see those recent articles in social media about pharmacists delivering COVID vaccines by plane and snow machine and all that, that's literally what we do. So
Wow.
I love that I don't have a typical day. My job currently is the village operations, which is just, I have finally found a way to merge traveling and pharmacy and get paid for it. It's pretty awesome. My big project up here is these pharmacy vending machines that we have in the small towns that don't have a healthcare facility. And I work with local residents there who they're essentially like EMTs who have access to these machines and can do initial triaging to make sure that they have just safe and accurate medications for their patients in these small communities. So.
Interesting.
Awesome. Does any of the independent pharmacy people want to share what it's like to be in that role?
Sure. I mean, I'm in rural northern Maine, so I'm not, I mean, our population is in my town about, I think, 12,000 people. So it's not as spread out as up in Alaska, but I got my main location right in town, and I got a smaller pharmacy about 20 minutes away. That's in a town of maybe 800 or 900 people. So yeah, my typical work day, we're full service retail pharmacy at both locations, and my main location, I also do service long-term care facilities. So I do some of the consulting on the side as well. And with COVID, I recently kind of renovated the back portion of the pharmacy to be able to have sort of walk-in clinic, which has proved pretty helpful for administering COVID vaccines, and also helped spearhead my start in point of care testing, and eventually, hopefully, some telehealth opportunities. So yeah, that's kind of what my current state looks like.
Awesome. Anybody else want to share?
Sure. So I'm representing ambulatory care, which for everyone who's unfamiliar, essentially I work in a big giant primary care clinic. It has about 40,000 patients, 100 providers. So primary care, like wherever you would see your normal doctor. So what I do is I specialize mainly in diabetes management, along with cholesterol and blood pressure. So when you have 40,000 patients in a clinic, and I work for Boston Medical Center. We're sort of like a safety net hospital of Boston. So we deal with a lot of patients who, have a lot of social barriers. And a lot of them have trouble with diabetes, and the doctors, typically will see a patient for 20 minutes every 3, 6, or 12 months. And that's just not enough time to tackle everything along with diabetes. So that's where I come in. And from start to finish, I'm doing all clinical work every day. I have my own panel of patients. Usually I see about 10 patients per day, and I can write prescriptions under a collaborative practice agreement with the physicians. I can order labs and really practice at the top of my license in that setting. It's incredibly rewarding being able to be a part of these patients' life and have a good impact. But it's a really cool part of pharmacy that I didn't know existed probably until I was like 3 years into pharmacy school. So yeah, really different side of pharmacy.
How long have they been doing that there though? Because like you just said, you didn't know it existed, but how long has that even been going on?
That's a really good question. And the pharmacist who actually piloted the ambulatory care services, she had 2 kids, and I found out yesterday that she's leaving. She did her residency at BMC, but it's been going on at BMC for about 10 to 12 years now. The thing with BMC and a lot of the VAs too, they're these huge health systems that have to take care of so many people, and they're able to figure out how to be really efficient with the people and the clinicians that they hire. So really utilizing pharmacists, to practice at the top of their license to fill these roles is their approach to that healthcare model. So BMC is pretty progressed. I mean, we have in the ambulatory care department alone about 16 pharmacists with 3 supervisors and then our kind of like VP, which compared to my second year of post graduate training, our department was 2 pharmacists. So institutions are definitely ramping up their AmCare. BMC just happens to be a little bit more progressed, but whether you're 2 or 17, you can have a big impact.
Right.
How broad are your
relate with a lot of that.
prescribing privileges, Anthony? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I'm able to prescribe anything related to diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol, asthma, COPD, and smoking cessation.
Okay.
And we also have pharmacists as well that work in cardiology clinic, endocrinology clinic, rheumatology, and they sometimes have a scope of practice in that area as well. But for me, I stay in those main areas, and the providers really trust us. We put the prescription under their name. We sign a scope of practice, that way they can get filled. But that's kind of what our scope looks like.
Great. Yeah, I just got collaborative practice agreements 2 weeks ago for like flu, antiviral treatment, and then group A strep treatment. So those are that's my first kind of foray into the collaborative practice at my location. So on top of vaccinations, I had done that right when I had pretty much gotten done school, got my vaccination program up and running.
That's really cool. Was that difficult to do, Matt? Was there like a lot of red tape or a lot of obstacles you had to jump through?
Not really. It was a little bit difficult generating it. I mean, there were some good resources for standing orders that were very helpful. And the rest of it, I just kind of had to make up as I go. And the Board of Pharmacy liked what they saw, and I didn't really have to revise too much on the initial submission. So yeah, I'm pretty much the only pharmacy around here that can do both pneumonia vaccines, tetanus shots, the new shingles shots without a prescription. So it's a nice little advantage that I have for people.
That's awesome.
Matt, did they expand any of that in Maine with COVID? Like in Rhode Island, they expanded it even, for children and things.
Yep, they did. I think down to age 3 and older, because before that it was only influenza vaccines for age 9 and up, and then every other vaccine was 18. So they definitely expanded that to help with the shortage of the childhood vaccines with COVID.
So how does everybody see their role changing with COVID and beyond, after COVID kind of changes and hopefully gets better. How do you see your practice site kind of evolving with that? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I think COVID had a huge impact on my clinic in particular. Once it hit, we had to go completely remote, and before we were every appointment was in person. So now I was doing the entire management of my clinic over the phone. What we realized is that it does offer a significant advantage. Being in Boston and working at, like I said, like a safety net hospital, patients don't always have the resources, the time, or maybe the desire to really drive across Boston, park, navigate in, come to my office to have me talk to them about diabetes for 20, 30 minutes. So my show rates were probably around like 60% for all my patients, which was average compared to my colleagues. Once we went remote and we're just doing everything over a phone call, the show rates increased to around 90 to 95%. So what I would say is maybe a face-to-face visit compared to a telemedicine visit. Maybe the telemedicine visit is 80% as good as a face-to-face visit because there are some disadvantages. When it's increasing the show rates at that dramatic, of a number, we really do see a big advantage. So I think what we're going to do going forward, and we would have never figured this out if COVID didn't happen, or it would have taken us a long time, is implement part of our clinic, maybe 2 days a week or 3 days a week, that we do it completely telemedicine, because we're able to reach those patients that we weren't really able to get in the door before.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm being at the VA for my rotation right now. I've noticed a lot of patients, they either do the phone call visit or the video call visit, and it's just easier for them because sometimes they can't get a ride in to the VA. So I definitely see the benefit in that way. So I know a lot of you all are preceptors. Does anybody want to talk about their experiences as a preceptor and how you kind of engage with current pharmacy students?
I can start with that. I was at Seminar by the Sea last year when I think you or I got notification that classes were going to be canceled online, and COVID was I guess a year ago this week, I think. And taking pharmacy students into facilities, nursing homes, when nursing homes were being hit hard was really hard. That was quite a challenge. We were able to work around that a little bit with some of the electronic medical records, but I was still going into the facilities. So we were having to do testing, which way back when it wasn't as convenient as it is today. But the students were great. They were so flexible, and I think they were just so happy to be having rotations and being able to get into to do something. And the facilities were really good about having them in. They've seen the value of having the students on site. And as soon as we could get them back in, we did. Sometimes it was make sure you have a test. Once we had vaccines, that made it a lot easier. And now CMS just released something today as far as visitation for our nursing home residents. So that also extends to us going into the facilities. So I really feel like we're going to be back to, as normal as you can get very soon. Hopefully next rotation, it'll be great.
Jill, you make a really good point with saying, how hard it was for the students. And we have a student who works for us at Green Line and doesn't go to URI. She goes to another local school for pharmacy. And I felt so bad for her because she's in her 6th year as well. She's a P4 student. And out of her 6 rotations, 5 of them were remote. And honestly, it wasn't even remote with the preceptor necessarily. It was mostly, on her own at home doing some research that really just cut down on the experience so much. I felt like the students that I have and had last year as my URI students, URI did such a wonderful job pushing forward and making arrangements and tweaking, different circumstances for the students. It was so commendable because you see these other students and that's such a big year and they missed out on so much,
Yeah, some of it was even, and again,
we had to go a little unconventional, but the governor was saying, be outside. That's where you need to be. So we were outside on my porch and we set our chairs 6 feet apart and I put a screen between us and, you know, we wore our masks and we were able to talk and it still doesn't replace the being in with the other health professionals. So what I would do is have them get on the phone and call when we came across something. I would have them call rather than me so that they could go through the frustration of trying to get to a nurse. And remember, it was the middle of COVID and my population was hit the hardest. The hardest thing about COVID for me was the loss of the life and the nursing staff bringing this home to their family and some of their family dying from COVID, you know, just really being supportive to all of them through this. It's still so hard. I'm sure so many of them are going to have PTSD for so long. But we also had to keep the students safe. You know, that's a huge priority.
Yeah, and
So,
engaged.
yeah.
So Erin, you could speak to some of that from your experience as a P4 student, you know, with your rotations and the amount of yours that were in person versus having to be remote.
Yeah, I'm really lucky that all of mine have been in person, and they have been a little bit different than maybe what they would have been before, but I feel really fortunate that URI did want us to be in person safely as best as we could. And, you know, of course, when we had to be virtual, we were virtual, but you know, they really pushed to have us get the most out of our experience. There's also a few questions in the chat that I wanted to address. So I think one of them is about collaborative practice agreements, which we might not have explained for the folks who are maybe newly admitted students. So if someone wants to explain what a collaborative practice agreement is for the students, that'd be great.
Sure. Pharmacists with their license aren't allowed to prescribe medications. That's mainly our physicians, our physician assistants, and our nurse practitioners. But we are the drug experts, and a lot of the times, like in my clinic, I'm going to know the diabetes meds a lot better than the physicians in my clinic, and they'll admit that, and they'll know a lot more stuff than I know as well in other areas. But what it allows me to do is work in collaboration with the physician and kind of leverage their license to put in prescriptions myself. So I'm able to sort of practice like that nurse practitioner or that physician assistant. So it's just a way that kind of the healthcare community has realized the value for pharmacists and able to put them in a position where they can maximize their potential health outcomes by prescribing medications and taking a more of an active and clinical role.
Awesome. Thanks for that explanation. Dr. Estes, you said that there was a poll that you wanted to do.
Yeah, we have just a quick poll because we're just interested in all of the people that are on here just to kind of get a sense of how many of you are current students or admitted students. So I'm just going to pop this up real quick and you guys can just answer. Hopefully you can see it. You can just answer the quick question of who are you? Can you all see that? Oh, good. This will only take a second.
That's the one good thing about Zoom. It goes so much quicker than if we were in a room full of people asking them to raise their hands on that question.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So it looks like the majority of our students or people on the call are students who've been admitted to URI. And then our next one is current URI students. Great. And then we have people who are thinking of URI and alumni. Great. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
I love the questions in the chat that are talking about sports and other life. I find that really interesting, you know, being.
I know I can see the chats. I'm on my phone. I wish I could also be texting to just answer some of those because, you know, pharmacy is great, but it's also about just having that balance too. Keeps you just recharged to go to work every day.
Yeah,
And
I
I think
plugged in
almost
on
all-
the chat there. Yeah, I was able, my freshman year, I didn't play hockey at all, but from sophomore year on, I was able to join the intramurals and play that. And didn't interfere with studies at all. So I know when I was a freshman, I wasn't sure what the workload would be like and if I'd be able to kind of balance something like that. But I learned pretty quickly that's definitely something that you could do. So not gonna advise anyone to be fearful about that. So everyone's
And if
different.
anyone
Them to
is
do it. I'm sorry. I think it's
interested
good for them to do it, to have a good balance, not just be studying.
when I was at URI in my professional years, I did 2 semesters of sailing, which I also got credit for. And I think I did a year on the rowing team, JV. So those were just really unique opportunities that URI had since we were so close to all those different water sports.
I was gonna say, I feel like I tried to get involved in pharmacy related activities, but I also tried to branch out and do some things that weren't pharmacy related, because it's nice to have a variety. I'm definitely glad that I was in some of the organizations that I was in through the College of Pharmacy, but I also got to be an RA, and I did an alternative spring break trip. So I definitely feel like I got the most out of my experience. But I know that even after graduation, we can be involved too. And I know that Kylie is a past RIPA president. So
Nice segue.
right?
That's impressive.
Yeah, I know. So if you want to talk about that.
I am a past RIPA president. So I, like I said, graduated 2007. And I kind of felt like you went from being inundated in pharmacy and just kind of all you thought about, all you talked about, all your friends talked about, everything you did was just pharmacy. And then I graduated and I had my job. And I just felt like I was kind of just going from home to my job and then just going home and not really thinking about the world of pharmacy outside of that. And not really thinking about like the career that I thought it would be, just kind of doing the job. So I got involved in RIPA. I kind of just felt like I was missing the boat. Like I was just going through the motions. So yeah, I got involved in RIPA, and I'm still involved with the foundation. And it's just it's great networking. It's wonderful. There's actually so many URI professors that I know so much better now from there. And I strongly encourage that. And it actually makes me wish that I got involved more during school, but still appreciate what you've done after, but great segue.
Thanks. There's a few questions in the chat about landing a job after graduation. So I know this is kind of different for everybody, and everybody kind of took a different path. And we talked about that a lot during our interviews. So does anybody want to talk about their path? And then, we can always, other people can add on to that and say how there's differed. Thought that'd be a good conversation.
I'd love to share. So I've had a lot of different jobs, but my calling has always been small rural hospitals. I actually had ties to Northern Maine when I was in college and landed my first job there. And then I was lucky enough to be chosen for the Dillingham, Alaska rotation, and made some connections in Alaska and just fell in love with Alaska and came back up here. And I've worked at a couple different small hospitals. I think this is about my 4th small hospital that I've worked at. And so being here representing as the hospital pharmacist for our panel, I never actually did a residency. And I think that small rural facilities, just in my personal experience, I know we've all had probably very positive experiences with our pharmacy careers, but they're just a great opportunity and kind of underpublicized for new graduates. We're a small staff here, but we have hired multiple new graduates since I've been up here who don't have a residency, offer awesome loan repayment options. And because we're a small 24-hour hospital and outpatient pharmacy, our new grads kind of do have to hit the ground running. So we definitely challenge them and they learn a lot. It's a steep learning curve, but it's also a fun work environment. So that's my plug for small pharmacy.
The topic of residency came up, so I thought that might be a good idea to explain what that is, and you know, kind of how people get to where they are. I know that Antony did a PGY1 and a PGY2, so if you wanted to explain to the group what a residency is and kind of how to get involved with it and how to prepare for it when you're in school.
Sure. So residency is something that's becoming more and more popular each year. Essentially what it is after you graduate after the 6 years, you can do 1 or 2 years of residency. And it's just extra postgraduate training that allows you to get more clinical experience. It's almost like so your last year of pharmacy school, your 6 years, all rotations. A residency is just, you're like that 6th year all over again, except a little bit on steroids, because you're a pharmacist and the workload's pretty tough. But it's just more experience, more learning, and being able to kind of diversify your clinical knowledge base, and allows you to see what else is out there. And then if you want, you can specialize and do a 2nd year residency as well. That's what I did because I knew the career path or the specialty I wanted to go into. In the job market, typically it'd give you a competitive advantage if you had 2 years of residency. These jobs are more integrated with direct patient care, more of a clinical focus, and you're typically working closer and more hand in hand with doctors, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants. Now, with that being said, residencies are not required to get these jobs. I mean, everybody has a different path. Look at Rebecca, for example, and I know a ton of my colleagues who don't have as much residency training as I do. And overall, so I review residency applications now, but the best way to get prepared and be a competitive applicant when you're going for residency is to really get involved, join different groups, volunteer at different places, maybe try to do some research with one of the URI professors. That was one of the things that I felt was a major advantage that URI offered. There were a number of professors, 4 or 5 to be exact, that I went up to them and said, I want to do residency. And they said, okay, well, we're going to get you to write a journal for me this week. And we're going to get you to do this extracurricular. And we're going to push you in the right direction and set you up for success. And it was when they truly took up an interest in, I could realize that it was their passion and their job satisfaction to see us succeed. So I was appreciative I had them to push me along and help guide me through that process, because it's a very nerve-wracking process when you kind of, getting into the weeds of it.
Yeah, and even though I didn't do the residency route, since independent pharmacy was something I wanted to do right from the get-go, I was able to network, and Dr. Kelly Orr, who's in the chat here, or in the video, she and I were able to work together in school, and we were a part of the National Community Pharmacists Association, and she helped me a lot with a business plan that I ended up implementing in real life. So I can definitely vouch for the personal touch that a lot of the professors take with individual students, for sure.
Yeah, I was in Dr. Orr's self-care class, and I also participated. I did the business plan project, and it's just something that you don't think about when you're in pharmacy school. You don't think about a business plan. And then we had this assignment, and I was kind of thrown off. I didn't know how to approach it. So I think it's just the faculty is just really supportive, and I can't say enough good things about it. So let's see in the chat, because there are quite a few questions. So I want to make sure that everybody gets.
Aaron, there's actually a couple.
Are there any questions there, Aaron, about independent pharmacy? I'd be happy to answer them now. I get to sign off a little bit early, unfortunately.
Okay. I don't see any specific to independent. What were you saying, Caitlin?
There's just there's a couple questions about like our pharmacists and their experiences at URI. So what activities were they involved in? What organizations did you do? It's not just in the College of Pharmacy, but also at URI as a whole.
All right.
Like I'd said before, National and Community Pharmacists Association, I was the president of that. Played hockey for 4 years, and I also joined the Kappa Psi Pharmacy fraternity. That was an awesome networking opportunity to meet some of the other people in not just my class, but classes ahead of me and later on classes behind me. So I definitely enjoyed that part, the social aspect.
That was behind me, Matt, for the picture. I swear that was one of the Kappa Psi took in your like Christmas sweaters. I swear
Yep.
right behind me. I was gonna like creepily show it. So yes, you were very involved with Kappa Psi. That was fun.
Yeah, and I was for pharmacy wise, I was involved. I know I talked about non-pharmacy earlier, but I was and still am involved in Lambda Kappa Sigma, which is the other pharmacy fraternity, which I've loved because I got to know so many upperclassmen right away, and I just felt like I had a support system right from the beginning, and I felt like I could always ask them questions and always, you know, look to them for advice going through the years. And then I joined the Student Society of Health Systems Pharmacists. That was a few years in. I think I was probably a P1 at that point. A lot of focus on residency preparation, which was really awesome. And then just, you know, a couple other little things here and there. I always tried to stay pretty involved in the College of Pharmacy, volunteering here and there with certain things. So definitely a good idea to get involved as much as you can.
When I was at URI, I didn't join Kappa Psi, and it's like one of my biggest regrets. I always like, what? Like, why didn't you go? Why didn't you just go do it? I always think about that, like, figure that, because of what Aaron just said. You meet upperclassmen, you network, you get more comfortable. Such a great thing to do. So
yep,
do me and not do it.
Yeah, that's essentially how I get into a job my third year of school. One of the Kappa Psi brothers I'd met, who was I think a year ahead of me, had worked in an independent pharmacy in Newport, and he had just known my experience, and they were looking for a new intern. So Kevin was like, hey, I think it'd be an easy opportunity. You'd be able to slide right in. You're already familiar with a lot of aspects of their operations. So yeah, I was able to work there for a couple of years. And that was really important to me, to be able to see how another operation ran, since I was so used to everything at my father's pharmacy when I was working, when I was home from break. So it's good to see things from a slightly different perspective in the independent side of things.
Can I just piggyback off what both of the guys are saying? When I did the fourth year internship in Alaska, I remember being petrified when I got there because I had never been to Alaska before. I'd never even traveled by myself before. And I got a piece of advice that was, say yes to the first time you're invited to anything at least once. And so I ended up climbing mountains and, you know, learning how to snowshoe. I also ended up going to some Tupperware parties, but I mean, in the end, right, you meet people and connections, and, you know, you at least tried it once. So
that's great life advice, not just for going to Alaska. That's great life advice.
For sure. When I mentioned that when I was at URI, I took 2 semesters of sailing, honestly, just because once you graduate, you're never going to be able to take a free sailing class again. Let me just tell you that. And years later, I think it was about 6 years after I graduated, I was hired to be the contract pharmacist at Antarctica for a season. So the whole medical team, we met in Galveston, Texas, where the contracting company is based out of. And as an icebreaker for our group, they actually took us out sailing. We all thought it was going to be a fun like harbor cruise sail. No, it was competitive sailing. And I was actually able to bust out, oh, I've done this before. The University of Rhode Island taught me. So it made me look great because I mean, I was the only pharmacist on the team. Everyone else was kind of an MD or you know, some pretty well-rounded, respected people. So great opportunities inside and outside pharmacy at URI.
Rebecca, no pun intended with that icebreaker going to Antarctica, but can you give them a quick little bit about your trip to Antarctica?
Oh, it was such an amazing experience. I'm so glad I did it. I found out about the job in Antarctica from actually reading a pharmacist blog. And this pharmacist, I mean, probably about 2 decades ago, went down to McMurdo Station in Antarctica to work as a janitor, just to get some life experience and see what happens on the southern continent. But through his blog, I found out who had the contract for the medical services at the US run bases in Antarctica. So it took me applying 3 times over the course of 6 years. It was kind of like my lottery ticket. I would just occasionally throw it out if I was at a point in my life where I could take 6 months off and go try an adventure. And the 3rd time was the charm. So I was stationed at McMurdo Station in Antarctica for about 6 months. And I got to be a pharmacist down there, which is pretty awesome. When you're the only pharmacist on a whole continent, you do have to wear a lot of hats, but you also have some very cool experiences. So a majority of my work was actually just inventory management. That's the value of having a pharmacist down there, is because they spend a lot of money to ship drugs down there once per year because of the difficulties of shipping drugs internationally to Antarctica. Most of the actual clinical work we did was really similar to like an urgent care facility. We didn't offer any maintenance medications. We expected everyone stationed there to supply that themselves. So we saw a lot of like upper respiratory infections, work-related injuries. Occasionally we did see a medevac, and we unfortunately did have 1 fatal code during my 6 months there. So the fact that I was well-rounded and I had worked hospital and outpatient, you know, it definitely was an advantage down there. And then the social life outside of that was just amazing too. You know, a job brought me to this place, but while I was there, I got to meet really cool people. They had science lectures every Sunday to explain why we even have people in Antarctica. So just because maybe a job, you know, pharmacy brings you to a job site, or pharmacy brings you to Rhode Island for school, just don't forget to keep your eyes out for the other opportunities that are out there, whether it's going to be some, you know, cool people that you meet, opportunities to do sports or join organizations. Yeah, just take advantage of it all.
Very cool.
Great advice.
All right. Unfortunately, I need to sign off a little bit early. So as I had mentioned in the chat, if anyone has any questions about independent pharmacy route and some of my experiences at URI, definitely reach out to Dr. Estes and she can put you in contact with me. So
Thanks, Matt.
it's good to see everyone. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Have a good one. So I guess maybe we can just wrap it up with one piece of advice that you guys would give to an incoming pharmacy student or a current pharmacy student. Anything?
I have a piece of advice that I give a lot of them now, and some people who are applying to pharmacy school. You know, be flexible. Always have a plan. You should always have a plan in life, but be flexible, because that plan can change. It probably will change. It may change often, but you should have a plan. Don't just let that plan go and say, now I don't know what's going to happen. Wait till you have a new plan and be up for change.
I love that advice, Jill, because it's been a very hard year for plans with the pandemic and COVID.
Yeah. And enjoy the ride.
I feel like I've offered our students a lot of advice today. I don't want to overwhelm anyone with advice, but my closing piece of advice would be just find what makes you happy. it's so cliche, like, you know, if you enjoy what you're doing, you don't work a day in your life. But I mean, there have been a few days that I'm literally sitting on a plane flying somewhere new, and it's like, well, you know, pharmacy is my ticket for this adventure. So
I wish I had
whatever
known
it is
about
that
that
you-
adventure when I was doing it. Now I just travel. I work so I can travel.
Yep. I thought that was what pharmacy was going to be, but when I got to time together, I feel like that's when like the pedal really hit the metal for me. So, but I mean, whatever it is that, you know, makes you feel passionate about life, especially in like the day and age that we're heading into now, and how involved technology is becoming with pharmacy through telehealth. And I mean, so many different mediums, and our younger generation is just so well equipped to handle that. I think there's going to be a lot of different opportunities to tie personal passions into your career.
Yeah, and I think kind of to just talk about how great URI is, I also think not a lot of people talk about it, but it has great value in terms of, you know, you as 17, maybe 18 years old are about to make one of the biggest financial investments in your entire life. So URI is, I think, subjectively and objectively one of the best schools in New England for pharmacy. And like Caitlin had mentioned before in the chat, it has some of the lowest tuition around. And when you get to be my age and you graduate, student loans become a real thing. I'm sure you read about it on the news all the time. So it's very important to consider these things. I don't know if anyone listens to Dave Ramsey, but he'd be, you know, emphasizing on it big. It's like, you know, put it this way: if you're choosing between a BMW, an Audi, and a Mercedes, pretty all standard cars, pretty all even. If one of them is half the price compared to the other one, it's kind of an obvious choice. Maybe I like the BMW, maybe I like the Audi. The Mercedes is half the price. You know, you have to look at value. You're about to make a really big financial investment. So consider those things. You don't want to be kicking yourself when you're my age and maybe you didn't think about finances that much. Finances are not everything, but it's something you got to consider, especially being so young. How are you supposed to know this? But just, you know, really consider that. And that's why I think URI is such an amazing advantage with their tuition, because they offer a phenomenal program at a phenomenal price, and value is key.
Anthony, I think you could also add in there, you know, look at the long-term value of that car. I work with people around the country in my job, and they are always talking about how they would hire URI students. I know sometimes it's hard to find jobs locally, but people who are on the West Coast, people who are out in Arizona, URI has such a great reputation. I actually have a friend who did not go to URI, went to another local college, and they will hire URI. She'll hire URI students before her college, you know, the people that went there. She just feels that the education, and I think a lot of it has to do with the rotations that they go through. They're just so well, a lot's required of you, and it's good for when you're out in the real world and URI is on your application. And I think it looks really good.
There's actually a question in the chat from Lainey, it looks like, asking if anyone got any degrees after completing pharmacy URI. Dean Laird, I might put you on the spot a little bit. Talk about your journey, because you know you're sitting there, so you may as well kind of talk about.
No.
And we do have multiple opportunities for degrees beyond the PharmD if you wanted to go on for a master's, for instance, or PhD and different types of things. So if you want to just quickly kind of address that.
We actually have a couple of dual degrees. So if you're a businessy oriented person, we have a dual degree with the master's program in business. So you can get your PharmD and an MBA at the same time. We have an arrangement with Johnson & Wales for a physician assistant degree. So we have a few of those, plus many opportunities with the languages. If you want to serve somewhere in Europe, Italy, France, you can also get a language degree at the same time you're getting your PharmD. So yeah, the opportunities are there. And yeah, as I talk to the students at the beginning of their third year, I always tell them try everything, because there's so many avenues. It's a unique window of your life to really try things that you might not be comfortable with, and you might find something you like. So that's my little piece of advice.
Anybody else have any pieces of advice for the incoming students?
I want Kylie to talk about some of her positivity. Kylie's the most positive person, and if you were to watch her interview, she was the first person that Erin actually interviewed in the portal, and we were just so mesmerized by her positivity of the.
I enjoyed your video too.
That was one, and that was one of the questions, was about the future, you know, and looking ahead. So I would love for Kylie to kind of like.
Yeah, thank you. I love being a pharmacist. I love the career. I love my personal job. And I just think it's so important. And I always say this to my internships, and that is to just find what you love, because it might not necessarily be what I do. I know a lot of people would say like, oh, retail pharmacy, like they wouldn't want to do it for the rest of their life, but I'm, you know, sign me up. I love feeling like we're having a direct impact on people, and the people that come in every single day that we chat with. And even like what Anthony had said, you know, the program that he's been involved with has been, you know, 10 or so years has been really going strong. But I graduated before that. So since I graduated, it has changed so much already. And to hear my amazing interns are all like, oh, ambulatory care. Those words weren't even said when I was in school. And so to see something like that explode, which is just so amazing for pharmacists, and just the opportunities are endless. And I'm so excited to see my interns when they graduate, what they're going to do. And the kids that are on this call right now, it's incredible, the opportunities that you're going to have. And I can't even think of them, because it's just, we're not even there yet. They're just going to be completely different than what we're doing now. And I just think it's so important, like, you know, so many of you have said, is just to be open and just to be excited. And it's not easy, but it's worth it. And you'll have to remind yourselves that often sometimes, but it really is, it's worth it. And I just think that URI set students up so well. They really, really set them up to be successful. There's my positivity.
Love it. I often say this comment, and some of you may have heard it at the info session. I talk about the fact that we're preparing students for roles that don't even yet exist. And I think that's true, because it really does evolve while you're in school, beyond being in school. And the fact of trying to adjust our curriculum and adjust our experiential education to what's going to be there when you graduate is really what we're trying to do.
We're lifelong learners. That's what they always say.
Absolutely. So it's a little bit after 8. I did put in the chat the website for our Visit Us site, which has all of our upcoming events. For those of you that are looking for additional, we have one more panel on April 15th, which is another PharmD panel. We have another panel on March 30th, which is a BSPS, more focused panel as well. So for any students on this call that are not particularly pursuing the PharmD area, then we have that one as well. So check out those events and reach out with any questions. And a huge thank you to Erin for moderating our panel, and all of our alumni. Thank you very much. And Dean Larrett and Dean Orr for being on the call. Caitlin, for you all were keeping her very busy in that chat with those questions. She was just firing them away.
So many good questions.
Lots of questions, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're great. We love the questions. So please keep them coming, and also reach out to us if you have any further ones too.
Yeah, and for those of you that are in the Admitted Students Facebook group, our PharmD group and our VSPS group, feel free to reach out to any of us that way as well. We're all involved in that too. So we look forward to hearing from you. So thanks everyone. Great night.
Thank you.
Have a great night.